how you want to proceed, I wasn't going to make a big speech. I like having the dialogue. I like having the conversation that comes with the question and answer process. I'm sure that you can easily get a hold of, basic information around our platform and those kinds of things. If you want specifics, we can certainly provide them. But my preference, rather than to give a big long speech, is to just thank you for the opportunity, tell you that I'm very pleased to be able to spend some time with you. I look forward to answering the questions that you have, and I want to make one remark, I think, overall, which is that the decision that the people made in October has made things quite a different place around here. It's meant that this place is operating a little bit differently than it has in the many years that I've been, I haven't been here that many years, but in many years, including the years I've been here. And I think that provides a great opportunity, and it's one that we're certainly working hard to take advantage of. We're committed to, as we say often, rolling up our sleeves and trying to get things done for the people of the province. That's what our commitment is. That's what it has been, and we've been working hard to do that. We've done some work on the budget, as you know. We've done some work on different kinds of bills that go through the legislature, and we're here to help make Ontario a better place and to play an important role in that process as an opposition party in a minority situation, which it gives us great opportunity. So I'll leave it at that. I really don't want to give a big, complicated speech. I really would like to get you an opportunity to ask your questions. And of course, I'm with Jagmeet Singh, the MPP for Bramalea, Gore, Malton, who was elected in October, and we're very proud to have him with us.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Horwath, for giving us this opportunity to actually have a more open dialogue with you in your office, your party. I'd like to thank you for the members' private bill about the 5Ks.
Yes.
And I'd like to thank you for the Kirpana issue in the courts that you're pushing through. I'd like to thank you for the genocide precedents that you already did. And I'd like to thank you that you, apart from the politics, you've done a great job in order to ensure that the budget the government is bringing is more better for the people of Ontario than the Queen's Park itself. So for those notes, I'd like to thank you from the Punjabi Press Club. We do recognize the services you guys do at Queen's Park for the people of Ontario. I'm going to open the floor for everybody to ask questions, but I'm going to throw a first question at you that yes, you've done a great job ensuring the budget has some more money for the people than the rich people. But why are you now holding up the budget? Why are you now trying to not pass that budget and get the business going at Queen's Park? The government has raised concerns that the NDP is playing politics with the budget now, even though some of your demands were met. What is your take on that?
Sure. Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Hetzer, because it gives me an opportunity to actually explain what we are doing. What we've said to the government very clearly is that we are prepared to move ahead and help them facilitate getting a number of things through so that they can implement the key parts that need to be implemented right away. They're very concerned about the tax measures, for example, because time is getting on and they need to have those things done before the legislature rises. So the tax measures in the budget that we got changes to, as well as the ones that they brought forward, so the freezing of the corporate tax rate reductions, the higher tax on the 2 percentage point income tax increase in income tax for those earning over $500,000. Some of those fundamental tax issues, we've said, absolutely, we'll do everything we can to facilitate you getting those things through. But let's face it, the budget document is 350 pages or more tall. It includes massive privatization. It includes all kinds of organization, the ability to create all kinds of organizations very similar to that of Orange. And we, as the opposition, have a very important role to play to scrutinize that legislation. And so we're not saying we'll hold it up, but what we are saying is you can't expect us to not debate these fundamental issues of privatization, of creating these agencies that we have seen so far that have failed in Ontario, particularly Orange. The Ombudsman has sent some alarm bells out around some of these initiatives. There are changes to environmental laws that over 50 environmental organizations have set up some red flags around. There's serious concerns about people's private information around the privatization of Service Ontario that OPSU has raised. And so all we're saying is it's our job to scrutinize and debate the budget bill. It's not our job just to give the government a free pass. And so what we're doing is we're being, I think, very responsible in acknowledging that the government needs to get the tax measures through. Well, we've said for weeks now, we'll help you with that. We'll get that done. But we have an important role to play to actually look at the details of what's in that legislation and make amendments to it to make it better, protect the interests of the public on these areas of privatization and other changes that are coming. So, and we've also given them a schedule on how we can help them get that done. So it's a little bit of political gamesmanship going on in the legislature for sure. It's the Conservatives that are ringing bells, that are stalling off legislation, but we are trying to provide opportunities for the government to get some things done while still taking seriously our role to scrutinize legislation and have public debate of legislation so that people know what's in that budget bill and so that we can make further amendments to it.
Well, within 8 days to go, will your party vote for the budget?
Well, again, we are waiting. We've talked to the government about amendments that we would like to see. So, I mean, if we get some of the amendments that we want, we can't. I mean, I can't say that yes or no it's going to happen within 8 days. There's the opportunity for the government to bring forward motions for extension of the legislature, and we've told them already. If you need another week, another 2 weeks, another 3 weeks, we'll sit till the end of June. We'll sit to the end of June. We'll sit into the beginning of July. We think it's important public business. We understand the government wants it done. We also know the Conservatives particularly have been playing games and holding up the legislature. So we've given them we've given them notice that we're prepared to sit for several weeks further if they need that time to get through the public scrutiny part, the clause by clause and the public hearings on the budget.
Andrea, your debate is understandable as being in the opposition that you do want constitutionally, yes, that each and every issue needs to be debated in the House itself. But what extreme are you prepared to go to should your demands, as you are asking at the moment, are not met? Are you prepared to not vote and vote against that, and which means that we are going to go back to the ballot? Are you prepared for that?
Well, what we've said to the government is that we have some real concerns with some of the details of that budget bill, and we expect it to go through the normal process. So we're not trying to overextend the amount of time and scrutiny, but we have to at least have a normal amount of scrutiny for the budget. So there's a difference between the government saying, because we want it, you have to give it to us. Because we want it done this way, you have to give it to us, and us just acquiescing to that and say, well, of course, you say that, and so we have to do it. That's not negotiation, and that's not working together, right? That's them putting down an edict and expecting us to just do what they want. What we want to do and what we need to do and what is our job to do is to have some public hearings on the budget. Again, we're not saying they have to be all through the summer for months and months and months, but we are saying there has to be some public hearings. Remember, there were no public hearings prior to the budget. Usually the Finance Committee actually goes out and does public hearings before a budget's even produced. This year that didn't happen. The first time in decades that didn't happen in Ontario. So what we're saying is regular scrutiny through the process by which bills go through the House. So not playing games, not holding things up, but it means a couple of days of public hearings, and it also means a proper amount of time for clause by clause. And I'm not sure if you know what clause by clause is, but that's where the budget, you literally go through a bill, piece of legislation, piece by piece by piece, and the parties can debate different pieces. They can bring, the most important part, can bring amendments to parts of that legislation. So, for example, when we're talking about the parts of the budget bill, of the legislation, that contemplates the creation of all kinds of new organizations that are at an arm's length for government, we're interested in making sure that there's proper oversight there, that there are proper ways to make sure the public interest is guarded, because we don't want to see the same thing happening in a number of different areas in Ontario, the same way they happened with Orange. So we have some ideas. In fact, we already have our amendments ready. We want to get to that point. We want to get to that process, and we're prepared, as I said, to sit a little bit longer, but certainly not to play games or hold things up, but to scrutinize the way that we should.
No, but my question was still is that if they don't meet your demands, are you pushing towards another election?
Well, again, I think that we're going to go. We're certainly not in that position right now. We want the government to know that we have some serious suggestions that we would like them to consider on the specifics of what's in that bill. When I met with Mr. McGuinty and we talked about what we needed overall to see in terms of changes to the budget on the principal side, right? So we wanted a little more money in healthcare. We wanted more focus on jobs. We wanted the fairness tax. We wanted to shore up the childcare system. There's a number of things that we put on the table that we didn't get. The horse racing industry, we wanted to see some work done there. The Ontario Northland, which is a transportation system for the north, we wanted some work done there. So we didn't get everything we wanted. But Mr. McGuinty asked me many times, does this mean, what we will need to do is have our budget passed by June? And I said to him, we'll pass the budget in due course, or the budget will pass in due course, as long as you recognize that there's a process that we have to undergo. So I made no guarantees to Mr. McGuinty. He knows very well I made no guarantees in terms of the process, because we have a job to do as opposition, and we have some real serious concerns about the specifics in the bill, and we want to have the opportunity to bring those amendments forward. And so, I can't say to you today whether the government's going to accept some of our amendments. I don't know. Is the government prepared to admit that some of the things that they have in that legislation, in fact, could cause real serious problems for Ontario? I don't know. And that's what we'll find out as we go through this committee process, right? As the budget goes to committee for the public hearings and the amendments.
Madam, I have let me take out of the complexity of the budget, which everyone cannot understand. We understand that your party is the savior of this group. I'll bring you to the urge that ordinarily, though I don't include myself, I get my own insurance or insurance. But ordinarily, the citizens living in this area, they are earning not more than $1,200 to $1,100 a month. I believe that if they're paying $700, $800 their rent, and they have to survive to get food and stuff and clothing, I don't think that anybody can live within that range of $1,200 to $1,100. What your budget or your policy says to uproot this poverty from them?
Well, it's a good question, and it's a wise observation. There's no doubt that people aren't able to make ends meet on the kinds of incomes that they are currently able to earn. In our platform, we had a number of different parts to how to address that problem, and it ranged from changes to the minimum wage, to increases in social benefits that were tied to inflation, that included the building of affordable housing. Of course, we talked about making life more affordable overall in a number of different ways. So for everyday families who are working, the bills are growing higher, and people simply can't make ends meet. So we talked about getting the HST, for example, off of home heating and off of hydro. Of course, Jagmeet's come forward with some ideas around making auto insurance more affordable for people. A big part of our platform, in fact, was about affordability. We recognize that people are really struggling. They struggled through the recession. They're not getting good jobs anymore. A lot of people lost good jobs and are now not replacing those good jobs with good jobs. They're replacing those jobs with lower wage jobs, with no benefits, and they're struggling very, very hard. And so a big part of our election platform was, first of all, to acknowledge that straight out and to say this is a problem, and to say, you know, therefore it's our responsibility to put some things on the table to try to address that problem, which is what our budget, or what our platform did in a number of different ways.
My question, just in no word, yes. Can a person survive for a month in $1,200?
No. In fact, no, they can't.
Of the jobs.
No, they can't. In fact, there was a group that in Toronto and all around the province, there was a group called Put Food in the Budget. Was that what it was called, Alex? Put Food in the Budget? I think it was called Put Food in the Budget, but basically it was a group that went around Ontario describing exactly this. You know, here's what I earn every month, here's what I pay in my rent, here's what I pay for my other bills, and at the end of the month, I've got maybe $20 left for groceries. You can't survive. And so you're right. People are not able to survive in this economy with the expenses the way they are and the income the way it is. Yeah.
Madam, you're talking about the auto insurance, GST, and house taxes. You think you should solve these problems? Is problem is solved in the next budget?
No, in fact, I think that the budget is. I was a little worried about the impact the budget's going to have, which is why I encouraged the government to consider the 2 percentage point increase on higher income folks to help provide some relief for everyday people. And instead, so they agreed with that, but instead of actually providing the relief, they're putting that to the deficit. I think it's important to say that I believe the deficit needs to be addressed as well. But we had a different plan for how we would address the budget, because I don't think that Ontario is going to actually do better as a province while everyday people are struggling, while they're losing hope. They don't see a positive future. How do you have a strong province when the people who live here are not feeling strong and they're not feeling confident about the future? So in our platform, and if we'd have put together a budget, it would have been the opposite way of what the government's done. Yes, the budget needs to be tackled, but we don't need to continue to give, for example, tax reductions to corporations that aren't creating jobs, that are simply putting that money into cash reserves. The cash reserves that are held by the corporate sector right now in Ontario have grown over 400% in the last decade. That's insane. The money's it's sitting in cash reserves. It's not circulating through the economy. It's not putting people back to work. It's not being invested in technology and in plant and machinery. It's sitting there. And in the meanwhile, people are not able to have a decent quality of life. So we would have done that. We would have used that room. We would have used that room also to start giving some relief to people, right? To get that HST off of home heating and hydro. We had some ideas around creating incentives for business to do that hiring, to do that investment through tax credit systems, refundable tax credits, so that you're rewarding the companies that are actually giving something back. So you hire a worker, you get a tax credit for that. You invest in technology, you invest in your plant, you get tax credits for that. And not just big companies, right down to the small mom and pop small company, because we know that a lot of smaller companies are the ones that are creating the jobs these days, and they need the partnership, the helping hand to help them do that. And so we had a different way of looking at how you put a budget together for a province. To give hope back to people.
There is a huge disparity between the pay of the workforce and high-ups, especially CEOs of the big corporations, especially banks, insurance, like that.
Yeah.
If you have a chance to form a government, will you legislate to reduce these pay differences, or will yield like Gore in 90s?
Well, no, it's a good question, and it's interesting because we had that in our platform, but not for the private sector. We had in our platform a hard cap on CEO salaries in the public sector, because we see CEOs in the hydro system, for example. We've got 5 different agencies in the hydro sector in Ontario, all of which have CEOs, all of whom have 6 or 7 figure salaries. Some of them are making over $1 million, right? We have CEOs of hospitals that are in the 6 figures, high 6 figures, $700,000, $800,000. We see those kinds of salaries across the public sector. Well, the people who are paying for those salaries are the people that can't make ends meet, right? I mean, they're the people who haven't gotten a good job after the recession, who are struggling, and the disparity is growing. That's happening in the private sector for sure, but in the public sector, the least we can do is put a stop to that. So we did have that in our platform, and I'm committed to that. What we said was, it's not reasonable for people to be earning, those high rates of salaries in the public sector, and so we would cap the rates at the CEO salaries at twice what the Premier makes. And I actually asked him to do that again when we talked about, when we had the budget negotiation. That was one of my asks again, and they still have not. They've decided not to do that. In the private sector, it's a little harder. But it has happened in other jurisdictions. There has been at least discussion around that in the private sector, although it's a little bit more politically difficult to do that. But certainly in the public sector, it makes a lot of sense. And then we would reinvest that money into services and into making sure that people have their basic needs met.
Like Dr. Salman asked that question, the people are surviving with a low income, right? And the people are surviving with auto insurance and with the exploitation of the employment agencies and higher tuition fees and everything back of our institution in Brampton. Do you have any specific solution to eliminate these kinds of things, just like your poverty in Ontario? If your government coming, and you have any specific solution for these problems, or the same thing is happening just like the other parties?
Well, so there's a number of different things that we have actually got some commitments for. I mean, one of them is to get the auto insurance dealt with, because again, it's a huge cost for people. They can't afford it, and particularly living in places like Brampton and those kinds of communities, you don't have a choice. I mean, you have to take your car. You have to have a car. I mean, the communities are spread out, and you can't take public transit. It'll take you hours to get everywhere you need to go. And so that's why Jagmeet identified that as a big deterrent for people to be able to buy insurance, is because it costs too much money. So the auto insurance is one of the affordability things. One of the things that we were going to do is freeze tuition fees. So the government instead has this 30% rebate for students. But in the meantime, every year the tuition still increases. So within a couple of years, your tuition will have increased to eat up the value of that 30%. And that 30% is only for some students, only for undergraduates, and only for full-time. So if you're not in full-time studies, you don't get the 30% rebate. And if you're in your graduate studies, you don't get your 30% rebate. So it's a problem. A lot of, for example, people who are going back to school part-time to try to get a better job, for example, they're paying the higher rates because they don't get the rebate. So on students, yes, we wanted to freeze the rates, knowing that they're high already, and we need to start going the opposite direction. Again, a minimum wage is something that we talked about as well, to try to get wages up.
You are saying you can work on the public sector, right? In the Ontario, we have 150 corporations who control all the hospitals.
Yes.
And the Alberta, they have only one corporation control all the hospitals. Why this money? And we are cutting the benefit to the public. Like before, we had a lot of benefit when the Malton government came here. They cut the health I will attend a lot of JCAT, right? Long-term care, blah, blah, blah.
Physiotherapy.
Yeah, physiotherapy, right? And other thing, these physiotherapy is good for the insurance company. How they are doing the fraud. And, and my next question is that, when we are saying that when the guy becomes victim after accident, they become the victim, right? The insurance company, when he tried to get the claim, he did not get anything. Who can get the, during the fraud? The family doctor is saying he could not able to work, right?
Yeah.
And the insurance doctor saying nothing happened to him, he can go to the work. I don't understand. Same Ontario government, they have both doctor have different qualification. Both doctor have different qualification to their observation for the same victim. And the victim don't get anything. The mediator gets the money, physiotherapy gets the money, doctor gets the money, and lawyer gets the money.
Yeah. No.
Do you have any specific policy, specific solution to eliminate this kind of thing?
And this is one of the things that Jagmeet's bill is trying to address. But before, so I'll put that over to Jagmeet, because there's 3 fundamental principles of auto insurance that we think need to be in place for it to be a fair system. And we don't think those things exist right now. So one of them is about making sure that there's benefits, that the people who actually purchase the insurance get benefits, right? The other is affordability, that you can actually afford to purchase auto insurance. And the other is, right now it's a private sector model, and so we understand that profits have to be part of it. But of those 3 things, the only thing that's doing well, the only thing that works is the profit side. That's the only thing that's working. The insurance industry is getting great profits, but people are not getting good benefits, and it's not affordable. So Jagmeet will talk a little bit more about that, but I'm really interested in your first comment about the hospitals, because you're absolutely right. There's about 150, I think 148, 149 hospitals. All big corporations, all with big CEOs, and then many, and I mean not all, but many, like the smaller hospitals not so much, but the bigger, large hospitals, they have, a dozen, maybe 2 dozen vice presidents. Vice president of marketing. Hospitals need marketing, I don't know why. Vice president of personnel and human resources. Vice president of cardiology. Vice president of all these different things. All these vice president of paper clips they have for the hospitals. And so each one of these vice presidents is making a couple of $100,000 a year as well. And there's no accountability in the hospital system whatsoever. There is no oversight of any kind. So the Auditor General can do value for money audits in the hospital sector, right? But he can't do systemic reviews like the Ombudsman can do. So we don't really know. We don't really know what's going on in a lot of those hospitals because they don't let us in. And the government has refused to have the Ombudsman have oversight into the hospital system, into our healthcare system. It is the largest single budget item that we have. The healthcare system, healthcare budget, and our ombudsman does not have the ability to review it for systemic change, to make sure that there's oversight there. Every other province in Canada has it. Every other province has that level of scrutiny in their healthcare system. We do not, and it is wrong, and it needs to change. And there have been ideas that have come forward about accountability in hospitals. We used to have an MPP from Welland named Peter Cormos. You may remember him. He was one that always thought that we should be electing our hospital boards. I'm not sure. That's not policy for our party, but it's an idea that's gone out there to try to get some accountability. I think accountability comes with ombudsman oversight. It's something that we need to do in this province because we spend a heck of a lot of money in healthcare, and we are not, and there's no accountability or transparency there. So. Jagmeet, do you want to talk about auto insurance a little bit?
Just very briefly, just a couple of your points. What we're doing, 2 strategies that we're doing. One is there's a bill, a private member bill, that's going to address the fact that if you live in a particular region in the GTA, you're paying higher premiums just based on where you live, which is absolutely wrong. Your premium should be based on the way you drive, not on where you live. If you live in the GTA, we're all using the same highways, the 400 series. We're all having the same level of congestion. The population is very similar, the density is similar. So from one corner to another corner, rates being 150% or 2.5% or 2.5 times different is simply unacceptable. So that's why that bill is in place, just to address your issue about the fraud and some of those issues. just to, we have a committee that's struck. The committee is an all-party committee, and it's a portion of an existing committee, and we're going to look at some of the problems with auto insurance and get into more depth on what's going on. But just to give you one piece of the puzzle, the Auditor General makes it very clear that fraud, according to the Auditor General, gets his information from the insurance industry. He says that the fraud cost is between 10 to 15% of the total cost. So we look at, and then the provincial average is about 9% in terms of claims. The highest, highest range is about 50%. So let's take the highest range. That means in any community, out of 100 people, 85 people never make a claim in their life. No claims for 85 people out of 100. Of the 15 people that make a claim, if the Auditor General's numbers are right, and it's about 10 to 15% of those people are fraudulent, that's maybe 2 people. Out of the 15 people who make a claim, maybe 2 of them are fraudulent. Maybe. That's still a percentage, right? 2% at most. 15% at most, that's 2 people. So for the insurance industry to say that fraud is the reason why our rates are going up is simply not based on the facts. And if you look at the information we have, it's simply unacceptable for them to use that example of fraud as a reason. And in fact, what we're going to hope to uncover, and we have examples of this, when we look at the overall claim cost, that the claim cost includes not only the fact that the person needs medical treatment or physiotherapy, but they also include in the claim cost, the cost, like you said, of the insurance company hiring a doctor to counter your claim. It also includes the cost of the insurance company hiring other consultants to counter the amount that you're claiming for. They put both those factors together and say, oh, your claim cost was $30,000. But that half of that sometimes is the insurance company trying to combat what you're asking for in terms of healthcare. So there's a lot of issues at stake here.
This question is specifically for the state community, and recently a resolution was adopted in the Convention to Recognition of 5 days. But the fact still remains, after almost 35 years of on and off litigation in Ontario, that we trustees do not have the full and complete right to practice our law. And I'm talking about the bond policy which came up a couple of weeks ago, the partial which we do that. One issue which has not been addressed, or we have talked about with many politicians, including yourself, is the issue of exemption from the helmet in driving a motorcycle. So the same right has been granted to the citizens in British Columbia, Manitoba, UK, many other countries in the world. And we have met with Jagmeet Singh about that. So my question today is very specific, that what is your specific steps you think your party can take to address this inequality and grant this exemption to the citizens of Ontario to ride a motorcycle without helmet, as they do in many other countries and two provinces?
Well, it's a good question, and it's one that Jagmeet and I are working on. He had the meeting with you. I've met as well. One of the things that I think we are doing is pulling the legislation from the other communities, the other jurisdictions, seeing what they've got in place, and then use that as a model, not only in terms of the specifics, in terms of specific language, but also in terms of process, like how did it unfold in those various jurisdictions? Was there some kind of public education process, or was there simply was it all court based? I mean, there's things that we're discussing, so that's on our radar. It's part of the conversation that we've all had, and we're going to continue to work on it.
I just want to say one more thing. We are trying to avoid a human rights kind of a tribunal of litigation to address this matter.
Trying to avoid it, yeah.
That the one issue was addressed through Human Rights Commission with the Ministry of Law General and a little bit of legal involvement in it, but before didn't go to the tribunal, which was a good thing, I would say. So I think what we try to do in this particular case is also not to go to the Human Rights Commission, and for that, the political leaders of the Communist Party need to show leadership. And there is enough ample evidence in the world to see this is justified.
Absolutely.
So we are asking for your assistance again to pursue this further, and we are of course working with Jagmeet Singh to do it, but of course your
push needs to be developed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that so some of the strategies that we're very close to a particular strategy. I'm going to be working with Andrea on this issue, the leader. But a couple of the pieces that have come before us is that there's been litigation to win this battle in other provinces. There is existing exemptions that we can look at from the UK that mandated. And the overall picture is what we can also use is we can use data from these other provinces, Manitoba and BC, to counter some of the claims that this is going to be cost prohibitive, it's going to cause a lot of problems. Because it's been in place in these other jurisdictions, it gives us a strong argument to be made in favor. I've also done some research on jurisdictions in the States where there's actually no helmet provision, period. So you don't actually have to wear a helmet, it's all optional. States like Illinois, so the city of Chicago, for example, there is an exemption outright, so you don't have to wear a helmet, period. And we can look at that data to show that it exists and it's being done. If it's being done for an entire population, the question of it being an exemption for religious purposes is a stronger argument. So there's a lot of work that's going on, and I'm working on something that I don't want to preemptively let it out, but as soon as I'm ready to do it, I'll present that to everybody.
So we need to go take a picture. So we'll maybe do maybe one or two more questions. And
I have one question before we close. That's in reference to the insurance issue that Jagmeet has taken up. We were just there with Premier McGuinty, and the blame game I just see has started, that you are blaming his government for the automobile insurance rate increase, and he is challenging the tenure that NDP was in government, it was raised more times. So where that puts a common person, a common consumer, excuse me, where does that put a common consumer? So it's again like a game we are going to watch in the days to come, or
no, you're right.
Think is going to come out of
You're absolutely right. Back in 1990, Bob Rae, when he was running for office, made the promise that they would make auto insurance public in Ontario. And it was during a recession, and I wasn't here at the time, but apparently the conversation around the table is they caved into the pressure from the insurance companies, who threatened tens of thousands of jobs would be lost in a recession when people were already losing jobs in every other industry. And so they backed away from that promise. Absolutely true. I thought it was a mistake. I think lots of Ontarians think it was a mistake, but it happened. That does not give the Premier the excuse to say that there's no problem here in Ontario with insurance. He's been the Premier of this province for 9 years now. The insurance industry has continued to make profits hand over fist in a way that is disproportionate to other industries, because there's a guaranteed profit built in, a guaranteed return on investment built in to the insurance system through FSCO, the Financial Services Commission of Ontario. So this government has guaranteed the profits, but also they've brought in reductions to the benefit levels that people can have. So they have actually been responsible for making things much, much worse. I mean, yes, Bob Rae's government could have and should have made auto insurance public. We see what it's like in other provinces where it's public and it's affordable and it meets people's needs and it's a good system. But we can't, I don't think the Premier can excuse himself from the fact that rates have gone through the roof, and benefits have been whittled away in the insurance industry, and that's all under his watch. And you have to acknowledge that first before you can actually commit to fixing it. And as long as the Premier doesn't acknowledge it, then I'm worried that the Liberals are never going to fix it. But that's why Jagmeet is trying to push the envelope. That's why Jagmeet's coming forward with his bill to say, look, here are some things that we can do to start making it more fair, at least particularly in the areas of the GTA like Brampton and other communities.
It's like the famous African saying that when two elephants fight, the things that gets most affected is the grass on the ground, and the general public is the grass on the ground.
Yeah.
Can we get one more in?
Yep.
Just I think short one. If Liberal have just one more seat, they might not need your support. And how satisfied you are that you are pushing NDP ideology to get issues solved, like child care, poverty, and other issues as the leader of NDP. How satisfied you are?
Well, you know, I think that the response that people gave me after the amendments that we made to the budget was very positive. Ontarians responded in a very, very positive way. I don't think we're pushing ideology. What I think we're doing is pushing solutions that people are looking for. People didn't want to see childcare spaces lost across the province. People need to work, and they can't work without, affordable, licensed, safe childcare for their kids. People wanted to see some fairness in that budget. They didn't want to see all kinds of cuts for everyday folks, while at the same time the people at the very top continue to not have to pitch in to help us make things a little bit better. So it's interesting. I mean, you don't rely on polls, definitely, because every day a poll is published and every day it says something different. But we've gone, in the last Forum Research poll, we went into second place behind the Conservatives, and the Liberals are down in third place. So again, you don't rely on polls because they're fickle. They're like putting your finger out in the wind, right? But I think as long as we act with integrity, which is what we've been trying to do, as long as we try to be focused on solving problems for everyday people, which is what we're trying to do, and not pretend that everything can be solved all at once, which is, I don't want to criticize leaders of my party from the past, but, you can't build utopia in a moment. You have to you work on practical things that make a difference for people. That's what good government is about. That's what good governance should be about, right? Thank you. So we're going to go get a photo, or?
Yeah. So folks, we'll just go over this way. After this is done, if you have more follow-up questions,